Shark Tank Podcast, episode 49.
So who's ready to FiberFix it?
Welcome to Shark Tank Podcast. My name's TJ Hale, serial lifestyle entrepreneur and aspiring shark to be. Each week, I bring you one of the best entrepreneurs from the ABC show Shark Tank. We discuss the behind-the-scenes moments that you don't see on television, the Shark Tank tsunami that rolls in after the show airs, and what it's like either working with a shark to grow your business or telling the sharks to take a swim on national TV. I also interview real-life sharks to help you unlock your potential and crush it as a world-class entrepreneur. Thanks for dipping your toes in the Shark Tank podcast. Now it's time to jump in. Hey everybody, welcome back to Shark Tank Podcast. I know this is somewhat blasphemous, but I just got done watching an episode of The Prophet. Shark Tank Tuesdays come with a little bit of a dessert portion after they're over, courtesy of our good friend Marcus Lemonis, and I got to say, I'm hooked. That man's got it sorted out, and he is fun to watch on TV. So do yourself a favor after Shark Tank Tuesdays, check out The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis. New episodes coming up February 25th. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for listening to Shark Tank Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Hale. Got an exciting episode today. It's number 49. It's FiberFix. And this is one of those products that as soon as I saw it, I thought, I want that. Now that happens from time to time, but I just, as a guy who loves duct tape anyway, and has got about 1,000 uses of it, I'm a duct tapeologist, went to school for it. I thought, man, this could really up my game and change things. It could change my whole life. And I knew a bunch of other people I thought would want to use it right away too. So I'm excited to get my hands on it. The guys from FiberFix actually agreed to do a contest to give away some for free to the Shark Tank Podcast audience. And before we get to the interview, a couple things I want to talk about. So the other day I got an email from a listener who said, hey, I love the show. You know, what can we do to support it? Yada, yada. I said, just be a listener, leave a review, tell someone about it, all the regular stuff. But actually I thought of something else. Do you know that when you go to Amazon, if you click on a link on my site and buy something within 24 hours, I actually get a commission on anything that you buy. If you buy a car 24 hours after clicking a link on my site, I will actually get a commission. So if you want a fun way to support the show, next time you're going to buy something on Amazon, go to my site, click on a book link or a product we feature, and whatever you buy, they'll send me a little bit of money. It's not a lot. Like things on Amazon don't pay that well, but it's kind of cool, right? So that's something I want to mention to anyone in the show who would never send an email like that to me, but was thinking that. Try it out. I'd sure appreciate it. I thank you. And I won't call you out because I don't want anyone to know what kind of weird stuff you're buying on Amazon. So ABC has updated their website. ABC, I think it's .go.com, whatever it is. If you Google any product or any show that ever aired on Shark Tank, they have full recaps and anything in season 5, maybe season 4, but at least season 5, you can watch the episode. So for instance, today, Shark Tank Podcast /FiberFix, I'm going to have a link. This particular show aired as episode 506. So if you Google Shark Tank episode 506, you can watch it. So anything that we cover today, you want to review, go and watch it. Don't have to pay a dime. Don't have to download on iTunes. None of that. It's right there on the show. ABC's really upped their game as far as the blog is concerned. Interesting topics for today. I'll come back after the show to do some show notes, so stick around after the interview's over. But one thing that stuck out to me, FiberFix, 400 stores under their belt before they even got on Shark Tank, which is a few months after the inception. And I heard that and thought, how the heck did they do that? We're going to talk about it, but it was a lot of hustle, working the phones, closing deals, doing the same things that any of you in the audience who are business owners can do. So there's a lot of great takeaways. That's the only one I'm going to spoil. The other one is the pitch being entertaining. We touch on that a lot, and FiberFix did a phenomenal job of entertaining while informing and persuading the sharks to enter in on their deal. So everyone, thank you for being here to Shark Tank Podcast. Without any further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy FiberFix.
Okay, so this is very cute. Let's talk about what matters. Money.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Shark Tank Podcast. I'm here with the founders of FiberFix, the world's most incredible duct tape alternative. This is Spencer Quinn and Eric Child. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Great. It's going great, man. It's going great. I really enjoyed your episode. Going back and watching again, I forgot that there was some really high quality drama when it taped. So it's good to hear from you too. How are things going?
Things are great with FiberFix right now. It's on fire. So it's a fun business to be a part of.
Now, it seems like a lot of fun. This was one of those products when I saw it that I thought, oh man, I could definitely use this. I think that reaction's probably pretty ubiquitous. But I'm really curious about the two of you and how it started. I don't think we heard a lot of that on Shark Tank. Who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what we need? something that's better than duct tape. I know I've never done that before, but obviously it's intuitive. So tell me about that.
Well, the inspiration for FiberFix actually came when we heard a story about a doctor who was traveling along on his ATV during a hunting trip. And his ATV broke down, and this doctor happened to carry in his personal first aid kit a sample of medical casting tape. And he actually used that casting tape to repair his ATV and finish the trip. And so when we heard the story, we got thinking, hey, you know what? If medical casting tape can be used to fix just broken bones, what are some other things that can be used to fix? And so we got thinking that, hey, maybe it could be used to fix leaky pipes around the home or broken tool handles or even broken auto parts. And that's kind of what began the inspiration for FiberFix. But we found there's a lot of R&D that would have to be done to develop something that'd be strong enough to bond to woods, metals, and plastics and be directly applicable to your average consumer in their everyday life and the most common breaks.
But as far as the two of you partnering up, how did that happen?
Well, we got involved really early on. There's actually 5 of us that are involved in the partnership. Okay. 2 of us had worked together in a previous business, and then the guy, the partner that I had from a previous business, started working with Spencer in another business he was working on after that. And so when we stumbled upon this concept for FiberFix, we sort of assembled the team based on guys that we'd worked with in the past and strengths that each brought to the table and so forth. So, we put together the team really early on, right when we were in the development stage of FiberFix, and it's worked out great.
Now, out of curiosity, since only the 2 of you are in the tank, are there still 3 other partners involved, or has it been slimmed down to just the 2 of you running the company?
Yeah, there's still 3 others involved. We're just the best looking. So,
You took a vote. I respect that.
And that tells you something about our partners in the back office, because if we're the best looking, then, that's not saying a whole lot.
Yeah, so they're the reason you need a back office is what you're saying.
Exactly.
You don't want customers making eye contact with those 3. Now, how does that affect the dynamic when you go on the show and you're making decisions on behalf of their ownership in the company? Did that cause any friction at all after you got out?
No, it worked out great. We had roundtabled basically all major decisions that we were going to face on the show prior to going down. Clearly, we definitely made some mistakes in the tank and some decisions on the fly that our partners have had to live with.
Well, we're definitely going to dive into that here. So let's not jump ahead too much, because I think there's a lot to take from your time in the tank. And also, when I started doing the show, I did some recaps. But what I found out real soon is that things didn't exactly happen in the tank the way that we were shown them. So that ended up being kind of a futile attempt at evaluating what we saw when it's not really what happened.
Right.
So I definitely want to get into that. Now, I kind of touched on the fiberglass/duct tape aspect. How long did it take to do the R&D to develop and get this product to market?
So we started with our initial prototypes in about October of 2012. And it took us a good 6 months to really get FiberFix down to what it is today. And we were privileged to be able to go to a local university, BYU, up here in Utah, and we ran multiple tests in their engineering lab, and we were able to figure out how much load this tape could take, and we were able to dial in the resin so that it'd be waterproof and also be able to cure very quickly. So it took a good 6 months till we were able to get the formula tweaked and also have it ready to start selling to individual retailers.
Interesting. So, and this is just for me, as the product sells and you get feedback, did you have to make any major changes to the formula, or was it pretty much ready to go out of the box on the first go?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, our strategy from the get-go has kind of been failing fast with customers. We've been trying to figure out exactly what the customers value most, and that has involved developing prototypes that maybe weren't perfect initially, but then getting rapid feedback on them so we could develop the perfect product for consumers. So we started at just trade shows before we started selling to retailers, and just paid very close attention, observed how customers reacted to the product, and were able to make the necessary changes that way. So.
Excellent. Spencer, you give textbook answers. You know that? I thought Eric was the pitch man, but you're doing pretty good here as far as sticking to the script.
I've got my script here in front of me.
So let's talk a little bit about the Shark Tank experience. Now, you said 2012. I heard 6 months. I mean, the show aired in October of 2013, the 26th to be exact. So that doesn't leave a lot of time there as far as you guys getting the product out and auditioning for Shark Tank. Usually it's about a 4 to 7 month buffer zone. What did it look like for you?
It was pretty similar to that. We were approached by a producer of Shark Tank in, I want to say February or March.
Who was it? Which one?
Of 2013. Actually, not. I honestly don't remember for sure.
Oh, wow.
It was in that time frame.
They'll be hurt. I'm going to cut that out.
And we applied shortly thereafter, and then we ended up filming in July. So what's that? 4 or 5 months probably.
Yeah. So you mentioned in there, I have in my notes that your sales reflected only a few months. So I assume that it must have been because the product was so new. Sounds like that's the case.
We didn't have our actual first full production run to market until April.
Okay.
And so, by the time we went on the show to film, we'd only had the product in market for about 3 months.
Which actually is impressive considering the amount of stores that you mentioned you already had lined up. Now, how did that happen? I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. Did you do pre-sales or pre-marketing to these retailers? Or do you have a family member who owns a department store or something?
No, what happened is, like Spencer said, we started with some trade shows just to sort of get market validation, see if people would buy it, see what their feedback was, that kind of stuff. And then based on that, we went out and we closed a handful of local Ace Hardware, True Value type stores. I think we had 5 or 6, Spencer. Is that right?
Yeah.
By the time we, by about February or March, and then, those went pretty well. So we convinced the Ace Hardware buyer to allow us to come to their spring buying show. Based on the fact that we were in a handful of their stores already. And at that show, we closed about 100 stores.
Whoa.
And that really got us off the ground, got our first real production run underway. And then from that, we thought, hey, the whole half of the hardware market that's independent, like Ace Hardware, True Value, they're all, co-ops and buying groups, things like that. But you have to close them store by store. It's not like Home Depot where it's centralized buying, and that presents both an opportunity and a challenge. The challenge is that Ace Hardware, for instance, has 4,000 stores, but you got to close them one at a time.
There's no blanket POs then, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they do buy for their warehouse, but you still have to convince every store to take it, And so that's the problem. But the opportunity is that you don't have to wait around for a centralized buyer. You can just go make it happen on your own,
So when you're starting out, that's a huge advantage then.
I thought it worked out really well for us because we just went to work on the phones and in person and just started closing stores as fast as we could. And so that really got us, beachhead in the industry.
Wow, very interesting. And then this is just out of curiosity for me as an entrepreneur, do you see a lot of variance in the different regions or store locations, whatever criteria you want to use, as far as some some stores selling the product and others not having as much success on the shelves?
Well, yeah, naturally with any retail distribution, you see a lot of variance, but it's hard to figure out why. It really is. It's not very. It's usually has little to do with geography. It has a lot more to do with store format and store management, honestly. Because some stores will sell great and some will sell poorly, and it's hard to tell why. Until you kind of go and check out the store and see who's managing and that kind of stuff.
I guess it probably has to do with shelf space. If they're all independent, they're probably all locating them in various places throughout the store, right? They're not in the same shelf area. That
is true. However, we do call each store and try to give them some guidance on where we think it should be based on success from other stores. And they're usually pretty receptive to that.
So I've got this visual of you going store to store and pitching while Spencer takes a 2x2 that's FiberFix and just beats on cinder blocks like in the walkway of the store.
What? That's the way to seal the deal.
That is definitely the image from the beginning. I mean, now we're a little bit more sophisticated than that, but I would call that the first couple of months for sure.
So your ugly partners in the back office like, how'd it go? Broke 6 cinder blocks. Got to get more blocks for tomorrow. Good times.
Sure hard
Good
to
times.
get around.
Yeah, exactly. You can only do 5 or 6 deals a day, before your arms give out. So the Shark Tank producers sought you out, and this is a question I get all the time. How do we get on Shark Tank? We've already applied for Shark Tank, and a lot of the Treps that I interview, it takes them a season to get on. Now, they sought you out. The initial contact was from their end?
Yeah, but they were seeking us to apply just like everyone else. So they were just wanted us to do a video pitch, and we submitted a video pitch and received word about, what do you say, 20 days after, a month after?
Yeah, probably.
That we that they wanted us to come to Hollywood and pitch.
That's
to the
great.
producers. But I haven't seen a lot of pitches for Shark Tank, but I really do feel it comes down to how entertaining do you make your pitch, and is this something that you feel you can describe easily to people? So I think maybe some companies get lost and explain the specifics of their business, but you got to realize Shark Tank is about entertainment. They want to see great pitches, and a learning for us too is just as much as a great pitch makes great TV, so does a really bad pitch. So make sure you prepare.
I think you're 100% correct. I mean, the crowds that I talk to, especially as a result of the podcast, you've got actual real life VCs on one end going, oh, it's just not realistic, and they do everything wrong. And then you've got the people on social media who are like, I love the show. I just wish I could understand how they come up with valuation. So it really is all across the spectrum. And so I think that's a great point. It just has to be something that sells on TV regardless. And I'm curious about your social media / web presence. Did you have a crowdfunding campaign, or was it just because you were out there marketing yourselves that they found you?
Well, we don't exactly know how they found us. We think that there might be a connection with one of our partners whose neighbor had sent in, something to the studio describing what we do and telling them they should take a look at us.
Interesting.
But it's a little bit of a mystery to us still, honestly, how they contacted us first.
So you
But
basically.
I imagine that happens quite a bit with companies that do have some presence out there where the producers are sourcing opportunities and go out and take a look and get people to apply.
Yeah, based on what I'm hearing, it's about 1 in 4 of everyone that goes on gets sought out by Shark Tank. So it's kind of a kick in the gut to all these people who are trying so hard to get on the show, which is why I always like to emphasize and kill that point of, hey, how did it actually happen? Because anyone who's looking to get on the show, that's gold for them. But you guys got lucky, and it sounds like it worked out real good. In fact, I want to go to the taping and find out, before we get into what we saw, let's talk about what we didn't see. Is there anything that did not make the cut that you really wish that the American public would have been able to enjoy? Did you break anything else on set?
No, I think they kept most of our pitch. It's funny. There was definitely a lot more back and forth and a lot more going on in the room than is shown. I think that even Damon had made an offer, which they never showed. They said they sort of showed him bowing out because of a deal with HSN. But prior to that, he had actually made an offer and then kind of realized we had a locked-in deal with QVC. So there's a couple of things like that definitely that were a little bit different. And then also just sort of the way they set up certain controversy in the show was probably a little bit different than what happened in real life. But I don't know. In actuality, when you watch it, you're like, that is the basic gist of what happened. There's no question. There's definitely some details that got cut out, but I would say it's the basic gist of what went down.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit. I have some sound bites here, and they kind of focus on the latter end of the discussion you had, but you were humming along pretty well. I know that Kevin gave you the first offer, and it was a Kevin offer for sure. Had the royalty with the drop perpetuity royalty, and but actually when Robert jumped into the arena and mentioned his friend with the hardware store worth 1.6 billion or 660, what was it, 1,600 stores? The number 16 is sticking to my mind, but I can't remember anything after that. Was it $16 billion home hardware store in Canada? Is that what?
Yeah, it was. He threw out a revenue number, not a store number, if I remember right.
All right. Well, it was 16 something. It was between $16 and $16 billion, right in that range somewhere. So
you're asking us to remember something from the tank, and dude, it's a pretty. You're under a lot of duress in there, so I don't know what Robert said.
Details. Who cares, right? But he gave you essentially the $90K for 10% that you asked for. And at that point, with his angle in the hardware store, I actually thought there was a pretty good chance that deal was done. And then you pulled out the back pocket, the Ace card, and you said, all right, I have a deal with QVC. And I went, uh-oh, this is a Lori deal. And it kind of got a little messy from there. So before you kind of comment on how it happened, tell me what your optimal deal looked like. Was it Lori about what you did? I mean, now that she's your partner, so I know you have to have deference to that. But what were you really hoping to have happen, best case scenario?
I'd like to say we went in with a ton of forethought and a good strategy, but I'm not sure we did, honestly. I mean, I think we definitely were. Lori was definitely on our radar because we knew that we had a lot of inroads to retail, and that's sort of our background as well. And so we feel more comfortable in that arena, whereas was definitely newer to us and something that's not a strength among the partnership. And so, Lori was really probably the partner we were targeting more than the others. But, having said that, we were open to other opportunities if it was the right fit,
And this, Spencer, based off some of the research we had done on the other sharks, we just weren't 100% sure that Robert would even be interested. And so, honestly, we were quite surprised when Robert offered a deal and so quickly and exactly what.
Yeah, that one kind of caught us off guard, honestly. And he came in really quickly. I mean, we were probably, 7 or 8 minutes into our pitch, and he's already making an offer. That sort of caught us off guard.
Interesting. Yeah, because when it happened, I remember thinking, Robert looks like he's 100% in. And he gave you exactly what you asked for, which Robert has a tendency to do. But not only may have not be interested, Robert also, as far as the average number of deals that don't go through, I think Robert probably has a plurality of those.
Yeah.
So, did that come into your mind at all? You guys, they showed you looking a little taken back by it, almost as if you dismissed the offer because of the timing. So I did want to ask you about that.
Well, I mean, it definitely caught us off guard. And, I think that because we had some other potential partnerships in mind, we still wanted to hold out to see what would happen with the options, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we look like we're stalling there. Yeah, because we probably were.
Yeah, and mind you too, before we actually went and pitched the Sharks, we had a different evaluation that we were planning, but Eric had some inspiration the night before we went into the tank, and we changed our game plan significantly. And so we went from asking for a pretty high evaluation to change it to a low evaluation on purpose, so in hopes that we get the Sharks bidding against each other. And when it started happening, it kind of had us like deer in the headlights. Well, let's start. We practiced answering questions, but not negotiations.
Let's start with the sound bites, because that's actually the first one I had in line was when Mark basically, this doesn't happen much. Usually if you go out to talk or to chat, they start talking about how they're going to change their deal and what they think should happen. Mark just straight up said, hey, you know what? They blew it in here. Their valuation is too low. And I don't think I'd ever heard that before, ever. I mean, they're always complaining it's too high. So I want to play this and we can go from there.
I don't see equity being worth anything in this company. It's a product. No, they underpriced it. It's worth a lot more. They underpriced it and they know they underpriced it.
Was kind of shocked. I didn't necessarily disagree with him. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So what do we do now? And that came up once you came back. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, so, one of the reasons we did, we did purposely undervalue it. And part of the reason why is because we realized in sort of the 11th hour before we went on that for us, it was a lot less about the dollar amount and a lot more about the percentage of equity. And so, when that thought kind of struck us, it was like, we might as well just price this low and create some action in the Shark Tank, because, for us, it's not really about how much money we're going to raise. We didn't really need the money as much as we needed the right partnership. And so, right, we did undervalue it, and we did know that going in.
All right, well, that's where I start, as the average viewer, that's where I start to get a little confused about what happened next. And that's probably a common thing that happened, or a consensus, because the line of credit is what really became the lightning rod for controversy. And I actually look at Robert. He wanted the deal bad. In fact, he said, look, it seems like you need more money. Let's talk about what I can do to make that happen. He extended the option for a line of credit. And when you came back, this is what happened.
We feel like we need a big line of credit as part of the deal. So, Lori, what we'd like to offer is $120,000 for 12% in the company plus a $2 million line of credit.
Guys, come on. I mean, seriously.
Guys, now you're blowing it.
I had to leave the commercial sound on there. The drama. So it kind of came out of nowhere because I felt like they suggested, I think it was Robert who suggested the line of credit originally, and then you kind of took that and ran with it and came back and said, hey, we want about eight times what you offered us. What happened out there in the hallway?
Well, there's a couple things that you don't see. First of all, before we ever went down to film for the Shark Tank, we actually had talked about asking for a significant line of credit for a couple of reasons. First of all, we knew that cash flow was going to be our biggest struggle as a business, especially early on, and especially if the business was successful. The more success you have early on, the bigger your cash constraints.
Right.
And so we had actually talked about that, but we knew that presenting that as part of the offer in the pitch was probably going to be problematic. So we knew we'd have to sort of drop that bomb later in the deal. Yeah. I mean, PO financing was sort of what we were really gunning for, but the line of credit, was obviously more enticing. And then the other thing that was going on is that, again, for us, it was about keeping the equity percentage low. And so, we knew when we went back and talked about it, we knew we needed to create some kind of negotiating chip to try to keep the equity percentage low. If we just came back and said, hey, yeah, 120 for 12%, then we knew what was going to happen. The Sharks were going to try to bid us back up in percentage. And so we had to have some kind of a chip that we could negotiate against with the equity going up. And it actually, I think, worked out in the end towards our favor. Because, really, whether we got the $2 million line of credit or not was not a deal breaker for us. It was really a way to kind of create another negotiating.
Interesting. Yeah, it did work. It's like, look what's going on over here. Don't pay attention to 12%. Just leave that alone. Yeah. So it's funny to hear you say that because I thought Robert had actually brought up the line of credit. Is that true, or did you mention it at some point and then Robert said, you know what? Yeah, that is important. This is what I'll give you.
No, he did throw it in. We had talked about cash constraint being a potential problem with the business, and so I think that was his response to that. But we even went into the filming with a much bigger number in mind. However, $2 million was probably a lot bigger than we had talked about. In fact, when I told Spencer in the back that I was going to ask for $2 million, he had about the same reaction the Sharks did.
I was going to talk about it later, but when the deal was closing, they showed a couple stills of Spencer. I don't know if that was B-roll from earlier in the show where he just looked like he wasn't, like he had checked out. Did you notice that, Spencer, when you're watching it?
Honestly, at the very end where you see that scene where I'm just kind of checked out there was and you can tell, I mean, they did a good job portraying, it's kind of intense there at the end. And I honestly, at that second, was not anticipating the deal to close. And it did, and it just kind of threw me off. So
I thought maybe they took footage from when you first walk in and you stand there silently, like you're, I always call it the...
They may have, but... I definitely remember Eric closing the deal and he looking at me. I was like, yeah, I'm good with it. That's great. But it was already done. So.
Yeah, I refer to it as like the firing range. You just stand there waiting for him to shoot at you with that look on your face. Like, can we go now? Can we go now? So I thought maybe they took that because you kind of look like, what's going on here? Are we doing this? I'm scared. But that's understandable. So the other thing that was one of the things, the line of credit, it's kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere and then you ran with it. The other one that I want to focus on is this whole retail versus infomercial. Now, this was a great segment. There's too much of it for me to play on this show. If people go back and watch it, I'd certainly encourage them to. I'll try to link it to a YouTube footage. But Robert's push was, hey, you got to get retail. You got to get it out there. You got to go to these hardware stores and make sure people are aware of the product, and men are your buyers. That's a summation of what I heard. Lori's was, no, this is a QVC product. Women are going to buy for their husbands, and you're going to get way better exposure through that route. And that was kind of the theme throughout the rest is which one is the way to go. And I was surprised because I felt like you were feeling Robert early on, and now you've told me that that's how you basically got the product going anyway, was through retail. So was Lori's approach just a lot more, was it the offer or the approach and the strategy or tactics that appealed to you most?
Well, again, when you're when you're starting a business and you're putting together, people in the business and skill sets and everything, you're looking for complementary skill sets, right? I've started 3 or 4 businesses, and when I've started businesses with people that have exactly the same skill set as I do, there's too much overlap. You don't get the benefit from the partnership. And when we structured our partnership starting FiberFix, we did the same thing. We looked for complementary skills. And when we went into the tank, we were looking for a partner with complementary overlapping skills. And so for us, Robert represented to some extent overlapping skills, right? He's talking about retail, and it's like we already had, we were already talking to most of the major retailers we wanted to be talking to. We already had a lot of those relationships. We already had a lot of momentum there. We felt like we were going to have success with the retailers. But we did not feel like we had the other part of the equation, which is, the direct-to-consumer, TV, QVC. That whole angle was, again, just something we didn't really have as a skill set in the partnership. And so for us, Lori represented the right partner because she was going to plug in with access to channels and relationships that we didn't have.
And then as far as you pulled out the ACE in your pocket with the QVC, I don't know if that was a PO or a letter of intent. What does QVC send you? What do you get from them? Yeah,
we actually had a purchase order. So we had worked on that one for 7 or 8 months, and we got a deal secured. Now, having said that, it was sort of your standard test purchase order. They were going to put us in, I don't know, some program. We didn't know exactly which one. We didn't know exactly which slot we'd get. And so, interestingly, once we did the deal, with Lori, she sort of put the brakes on that so that she could put us in a more favorable program under her sort of process.
And that was where the question was going.
And it's worked out. What's that?
That was where the question was going. Is an outside observer would say, well, if you've already got the QVC deal lined up, it's much like the retail side where you're kind of already on both of those avenues. Were you just trying to hedge your bets against making some mistakes in that arena?
Yeah, I mean, for sure there was that element, but the QVC is a totally different animal than your typical traditional retailer.
Right.
And we knew that we were kind of going into uncharted waters there. And then we knew that if it was successful there, potential other TV avenues, which again we didn't have the background and relationships for. And so, we just felt like Lori was going to bring something to the table there that we didn't have as a team.
Now, you mentioned needing all the cash flow, and Kevin got his butt kicked out of the deal. You came back in and basically said, we never considered it. I thought that was the line of the night, so I want to play it. It was hilarious.
And what are you saying to Kevin?
Kevin, we didn't actually consider that deal much.
I like these guys.
We feel like that would be counterproductive to the business. A lot of the cash would be going out the back door.
Well, if you actually thought it through.
And then you got a lecture from Mr. Wonderful about that. But that was great. Great line.
What's funny is we had actually run the numbers on what we thought Kevin would offer.
And?
We had a big old spreadsheet and everything because we just thought, we should evaluate what we think is going to happen with Kevin because Kevin's pretty predictable, right? And so we ran this spreadsheet and we sort of figured what it was and what's funny is he offered within 5 cents of what we actually had expected him to offer.
So did you think it was a 75-cent royalty or a 65-cent royalty?
I think we had said 75 cents.
That's hilarious. Well, Kevin is as Kevin does, as we say around these parts.
And so he was right in that if you get to be a $100 million company, that's a better deal than equity. But
there's
a lot of zeros between where we were and 100 million, right?
That's a big if.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was just kind of funny because he that's why we never really acknowledged the offer because we had already evaluated that one extensively.
Yeah, well, actually, his line was great because he defended himself well. He said, "If you're at $100 million," I'm like, "Yeah, but if the planet runs out of water, then the project won't work either." So
yeah, exactly.
So you got to take that in consideration. Let's see here. There was one other clip I wanted to play, and it goes into the drama that happened between Lori and Robert and kind of the direction they ended up going. I just want to kind of remind people of how that sounded.
Well, let me tell you why, Kevin. $16 billion hardware retailer with 1,000 locations, this is the path to go. There's nothing wrong with the infomercial, but I'm telling you, that is not the path of least resistance to start. That's a supplement market. What's missing in my offer?
Well, you know that you need a strategic partner that can take you farther.
Eric, let me just add a condition to my offer.
Okay.
I think what you really need is you need some of the money to do some development and other stuff, but you also need some money for inventory. I'll give you the $90,000 for the 10%, and I'll extend you a $250,000 line of credit as you need it.
But any of us can do that too.
I probably should have played that clip a while ago since we talked about it. But I thought Lori's point was interesting because you hear that a lot. They go, any of us could do that, but nobody else offered it. So what were your thoughts at that point?
Well, honestly, Lori kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like she obviously saw that there was an advantage for her partnership there, offering a supplement to the retail market, and we knew that we knew retail well already, and also we weren't able to get a name of these stores from Robert that he had a connection for.
Oh, you asked him?
Yes, and honestly made us a little hesitant to pursue that as like our.
Yeah, we tried to press them a couple times on who it was because we were already talking to a lot of the big retailers, and so it was like, if it's somebody that we're already on the verge of doing business with, then it has less value, right? But he was unwilling to share the name with us.
I'm glad I forgot to ask you that because when I watched it, I remember thinking, who is it? Because you gotta know those things up front. And then he mentioned that that he goes to his house, they sip brandy together, and I thought, well, they must be pretty close, so it'd be interesting to know who that is. He didn't really say anything about brandy or Cavassier, but that's just kind of what I pictured because I've seen that. All right, so let's move forward from there. Let's talk about the Shark Tank effect. You get out of the show, you go on QVC. I read an article that you were on QVC within like 24 hours. It's on the internet, so I don't know if it's true or not. But tell us about what happened as soon as you got out of the tank.
Yeah, so once I talked to Lori the following week, right after we had filmed at Shark Tank, and that's when she said, "Yeah, let's actually do the QVC thing a little bit differently." And she kind of worked it out with her contacts there so that we could be in the Saturday morning program, which is their biggest program of the week, the day after we aired on Shark Tank. And we blew through 45,000 rolls of FiberFix in 10 minutes on QVC that next morning.
Oh.
So it was a huge deal for us. And, it really set us up for future success with QVC 6 more times. And they've all been successful hits. So, she knows her stuff with QVC. There's just no question about it. I mean, it's not an act. She is the queen of QVC.
Interesting. So now, when I was talking with Kim Daisy from Daisy Cake, she's actually the first person who told me that the QVC deal was not extremely profitable for her, and it doesn't make sense for everyone. Now, is this something you're going to continue to do in the future? Is your profit margin good enough to sustain that?
It's been great for us. I mean, it's pretty typical margins that you'd have with any retailer. And so, it's been quite successful for us, and we definitely we'll continue it as long as QVC will have us.
So as far as the show, when you came on, you quoted that you had about 100,000 in sales over the last few months. It's been 2, 4, maybe 5 months since the show aired. Can you tell me where you're at now? Sales numbers, figures. Can you blow our minds with how things have gone? People love to hear. What happened? Did your website crash? Did cars run into street lights? Like how crazy has it been?
Well, I'd love to give you exact numbers, but we're sort of under gag order because we have a follow-up coming up here in another month or so.
Oh, you already got a follow-up in the works. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting, and that's where we kind of break down the numbers. But I will tell you this. It's gone extremely well. We've received store-wide rollout at Home Depot, store-wide rollout at Lowe's. We have some tests going on with Tractor Supply. We're in over 2,000 independent hardware stores now. So it's been a massive change in trajectory for us following Shark Tank.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, before I move on, The gag order, it's always fun. The way I get around it is I want your wife's personal cell phone numbers, and I'm going to call them and ask them to give me a cheeseburger factor of how things have improved. So like if they were buying one pair of nice jeans a month and they're up to 7 now, I know that the income has gone up proportionally. That's how I get around that. Are you guys... go ahead.
I started my career in the software industry, and I had a software CEO tell me that he evaluated businesses in Porsches. How many Porsches would I be able to buy when I sell this thing?
Yeah, exactly. You know the cheeseburger effect. That's Warren Buffett's, right? Let's put it in real terms of what it's worth. How many cheeseburgers can you buy? But apparently, he's not a Porsche guy. He likes his cheeseburgers. So tell me more about Lori. I mean, everyone wants to know what's it really like working with the Shark, especially for you two, since you're in a position where maybe you didn't necessarily need the deal as much as some people. Therefore, you didn't really have to take it. I mean, obviously, you're already going to go on QVC. How much value has Lori actually brought to your business?
Lori's been absolutely great for the business. I mean, we have no regrets about doing a deal with her. She's been a fantastic partner, especially on the QVC side, but she's also brought a lot of other value to the company. She's put us in contact with some direct response partners that have been fantastic. As a general partner in the business, and giving us her opinions and direction and insights and things like that. She brings a totally different perspective. I mean, I'll tell you, all 5 partners that we have in FiberFix are guys, and just actually having a female perspective is very helpful. Because she just brings a totally different perspective to things than the rest of us. And that alone has been worth its weight in gold. But, she's also, like I said, on the business side, has been incredibly instrumental in some of our retail deals, in our QVC business, and in our broader direct response strategy as well.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to wrap up here. One thing that I noticed when I was watching it the second time that I was embarrassed to admit that I didn't see the first time was Kevin wearing the black gloves. Was that creepy at all for either of you?
Well, I remember when this is Spencer talking, I remember when Kevin actually put the black gloves on, and he's just tapping his fingers like he always does in the show. And actually, when we came back out, he was trying to make us sound like, or he was trying to make us trying to discredit the product by saying like these black gloves make your product seem like it's radioactive or something. And so trying to discredit the product and say that we're going about it the wrong way. But it was a little creepy coming back and seeing Kevin.
He's an executioner waiting to take someone's head off.
What's funny, TJ, is like I said, there's a lot going on when you're in there. And I didn't even remember him having the black gloves on. And Spencer told me that after the fact, and I was laughing my head off because I thought that was a funny image. But I didn't even notice it when we were in the tank.
Yeah, we can't fault you for not noticing that. You had bigger things to worry about. But me, on the other hand, sitting in my living room, I thought I definitely noticed that. I just thought, man, he looks like, did you ever see the video game Hitman? The guy with the red tie and the bald head and the black gloves on. That's who he reminded me of right there. Like, that's a little scary. All right, so last thing, just as a general, you've both been entrepreneurs for a while. Spencer, I know that you went to the Y. Now, are you still in school? Because you had the hookup with the engineering department. Or are you out and full-time entrepreneuring?
I'm out now full-time entrepreneuring. I am taking online classes at BYU. I was taking a few more credits last semester, but after Shark Tank here, it became very evident that I'd have to give everything I've got into this company. So I slowed down school, but it's been the best decision I've ever made. So I thoroughly encourage doing school and business at the same time, but also making sure you prioritize your responsibilities. So.
Well, I'm a big fan of the personal MBA, Josh Kaufman, and that whole mindset of you go to school to learn business. So you have the opportunity to learn business. You guys have had a big win here. I want you to give some advice to other entrepreneurs who are looking to answer some of the same questions that maybe you had a couple of businesses ago, Eric, or maybe a couple of years ago for you, Spencer, and help them get over that hump.
Well, I mean, I think that, you were always encouraged to just kind of go for it. And I encourage that too. But I would also encourage, forming a team, getting together partners that bring, skills to the table that you don't have. I see too many entrepreneurs try to go it alone. And, years later, they still are in the same place struggling. And it's because it's really hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It's incredibly difficult to start a business and to get it off the ground and be successful. And, you want people in the game with you, and you need people that have skills that you don't have. It's just, it's critical to do that.
It's great advice. Great advice. What about you, Spencer? What would you say to Spencer and Eric 5 years ago? What do you know now that you wish you'd known then?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, just all of us in general, when we're thinking about starting a new business, we think we have to come up with the perfect idea right from the get-go, or we have to have all the resources in place to get us started the right way. But honestly, if I've learned anything, it's just been to fail fast. We had a lot of initial assumptions at the beginning, and it wasn't about is this the golden idea or not. It's let's go and just get our hands dirty, present this to some customers, find the quickest way to get someone to take a dollar bill out of their pocket and hand it to us. And I feel like if I had that mentality 8 years ago, this would maybe be my 3rd or 4th startup that was really off the ground and running. But I think we spend a little too much time trying to make the perfect idea rather than just trying to figure out exactly what customers will pay for.
Perfect it along the way, right?
Yep.
Is there anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention about your experience?
Well, I will tell you, one of the things the most, TJ, is that going on Shark Tank was very scary. I don't think I had underestimated how frightening it would be to go on national television like that.
Really?
So, for what it's worth to your listeners, it's it was a lot of fun, but it's a scary experience.
And honestly, before we went on the show, we were just as close to going on the show as we were backing out at the last minute.
Why all the anxiety? It seems like this would be a dream come true for most companies. You two were, it looks like you were like ready to go on Space Mountain for the first time as a kid and just totally freaking out. What's going on?
That's the thing, man. It's very surprising. Like, you don't know how you're going to react going before an audience of 8 to 10 million people until you do it. And you learn some things about yourself.
Yeah.
So going back, what would you do differently? Anything different, or would you just be a little more calm about it and not freaked out that it was gonna not wanting to quit right before you walked out?
Yeah, no, I think that deliberated quite a bit about whether we were going to do Shark Tank. Even in the application process, we almost backed out a couple of times. And then, like Spencer said, just, as we were down filming, we thought we considered backing out. And it's just because, I think that we thought there were more risks involved in the process than there probably were. It was just a perception that, something could backfire from all of this. But the reality is it was a huge opportunity that was hugely beneficial to our business. And looking back now, we would have no doubts about going on. But, it was an unknown. It was uncharted territory for us, and we didn't know how it would play out.
Final question actually brought up since you talked about going on Shark Tank. Do you and Freshly Picked and Mission Belt and Kiss Sticks, do you guys all get together in the Scrooge McDuck Bank and swim through your cash? Do you have swim cash sessions, or do you guys know each other?
Yeah, we all know each other a little bit. We sort of collaborated with all those guys before, so we kind of had an idea of what to expect and how that all played out. And all of them gave us some great advice about, how to be ready for it and what's going to happen and all those kinds of things. And we definitely chat with those guys pretty regularly. But, we've all got our own businesses. We're all super busy trying to manage growth. And so it's not like we're, hanging out 3 days a week or anything like that.
Yeah, I gotcha. I just thought I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I feel bad, but I joked with Freshly Picked and Nate actually that Damon needs to have a summer place up in Provo for sure, or up in the canyon at least.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of deals out there. Well, hey, I really enjoyed the time that you two gave me. I didn't know about the update, but obviously that's fantastic based on your success. I would expect that. Are you going to make it into the season 5 cut, or do you have any idea when that's going to be?
For the update?
Yeah.
Yeah, we expect it to be in the season 5 cut. I mean, obviously, Shark Tank and ABC are going to have, the final say on all of that, but that would be our expectation.
I'm just hearing that things are getting pushed back into season 6 now because they have so many things they're trying to get on board. So who knows?
That's
how
good.
works.
You may know more than we do. So there you
Well, hey, I wish you the best of success going forward. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and I think the product's fantastic. So I really expected when I saw it to see some really good things, and it sounds like that's happening. So congrats to both of you, and thanks for sharing your story on the podcast.
Thanks, DJ. Thanks for the time.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it for the boys. I know there's a lot of family and friends, a lot of FiberFix fanatics out there, maybe some local Provovians. I'm making up words left and right, but how cool is it to see your buddies, your friends, your family up there on Shark Tank, and now they're killing it in the entrepreneurial arena. I'm excited for them. I think they've got nowhere to go but up. Sounds like they've got a great partnership with Lori, and I want to talk about a couple things that came up today. First of all, they seriously considered quitting several times and almost walked off the set. What? Really? I couldn't believe it. You know, I've heard a couple of people tell me they got stage fright, but to hear, I believe it was Eric talking about just wanting to walk away, it really kind of blew my mind. And then I was doing an interview later in the day with Susan from Freshly Picked. Spoiler alert, she's coming on the show soon. Well, she's already done the recording, but I'm going to post it soon. She said the exact same thing. She said she was paranoid for the longest time about the way the business would be portrayed, about whether or not it would embarrass her on TV, or whether or not the Sharks would even want to do a deal. And as I started thinking back to the interviews I've done in the past, I realized that all the entrepreneurs have communicated some sort of major self-doubt, albeit in a different way. And then Susan said something really incredible, which I don't really want to ruin the surprise, but it had a big impact on me. She said that listening to the Shark Tank podcast actually influenced her to go ahead and pull the trigger and go on the show. Why? Because she started hearing the same fears and doubts that she had in the stories of every entrepreneur and how they overcame them, and how later they said that it was all for nothing, and they are glad they went on the show, and it was a great experience. And for obviously for a few of them, it was an incredible life-changing experience. So I thought that was amazing, and it's just funny to hear all these great entrepreneurs. I mean, Eric and Spencer were no lightweights. They were great in the tank. They did an excellent job, great product. They had sharks fighting over them. So to hear that everyone deals with those same problems, it should be reassuring to all of you to know that you're not alone. We all have the monster that we have to, the beast. We all have to fight the beast back and just man up and make it happen. Or lady up, for those of you listening that are ladies. Sorry, no discrimination here. Anyway, I got carried away a little bit there. There is a contest for FiberFix. You can find it on the homepage. The homepage is going to be revamped pretty soon. I'm redoing the website. I'm excited to see what comes of that, but I've got some guys working on it, and I think it's about due. It's almost a year in. The first website rendition was something I kind of threw together because I'd never really done any websites, and now we're moving up in the world. So I want to thank you, the listening audience, for that. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Instagram page. Instagram is my new best friend. I've had a personal page for a while, but go to Shark Tank Podcast on Instagram. Follow us there. I will be running some of the contests on that page here in the near future. So if you're on Instagram, I'd definitely go check that out. And it's opened up the show to a whole new demographic. I'm finding that a lot of the Instagram followers are a lot of mommy bloggers, a lot of the female demographic, and I couldn't be happier about that. So say hi on Instagram. I'd love to hook up there in addition to Facebook, Twitter, etc. Speaking of Twitter, FiberFix is on Facebook and they're on Twitter. The Twitter handle is FiberFix USA. I'd love for you to go to them and tell them how much you enjoyed the show and pick yourself up some FiberFix. It's great stuff, and I'm looking forward to getting mine, at which time I will post a review. So your homework today, thank you for spreading the word. The numbers have continued to grow, and I know it's because of the excitement surrounding Season 5, as well as all of you who are coming and checking out the show and continuing to listen. So know that I appreciate that. I would very much like, if you haven't already, for you to go to Stitcher or to iTunes, whichever medium that provides the show to you. If you use something else, great. iTunes is one of the best platforms for you to go and leave a review. It's very simple to do. Either leave an honest starred review or go ahead and write a review for future potential listeners of the show to consider when making a selection about how to spend their time. That's all for now. I've got some awesome interviews coming up. We've got Wicked Good Cupcakes on deck. We've got Freshly Picked in the hole. Game Face Company. Smart Baker's coming on. If you don't know Smart Baker, man, that was a great session as well. And in addition to all this, I'm working on a super secret project of which I cannot speak anymore. But the goal of all these things is to help you become a better entrepreneur, run a smarter, smoother, more efficient business, and live the life that you want. So thank you for jumping in to Shark Tank Podcast. And until we come back in episode 50, holy crap, 50? Really? That's awesome. Until we see you again in episode 50, get out there, make something happen, and we'll talk to you again real soon in the Shark Tank podcast. Bye-bye.